sharing a reading experience. I'm reading from a book entitled For James, and I'm sharing it with you now. Today I will go through the chapters called Fruit and Thorns. This is the second part of this chapter with one more to follow. I hope you listen and receive something worthwhile from this. This video might inspire you to read the book. It's my hope that you'll search for the best books and gain information and ideas to help you to become a better person. The more you read, the better you think. And the better you think, the more you'll be able to face life's challenges successfully. The second fruit, expulsion of slavery. Romans thought that since we know what's superior and inferior, we have the basis for determining what is right and wrong. The higher up on the hierarchy you are, the more authority you have over things below you, and the more right and privilege you have that you can claim for yourself. Some were considered more capable intellectually than others. These superior people controlled society. Wealth, bloodline, and power were the criteria for determining who was superior to whom. Slaves were considered inferior to unfettered people. Aristotle called slaves living tools, little better than animals, thus undeserving of anything better than their lot in life. Peoples of the city of ancient Rome had roughly 450,000 rightful citizens. When adding the subclasses, such as slaves, you have 1 million or more people. It is common for historians to say about a third of the population was slave. Some historians estimate the slave population to be closer to 40%. Religious Christian equality was the negation of slavery as practiced by a pagan society. Religious equality in Rome was a novelty. The early Christian church redeemed slaves out of its common resources, but did not attack slavery directly. But Christians acted as though slavery did not exist. Later, barbarian invasions were calamitous for slaves, increasing slave numbers which were diminishing. Documents of the 5th to the 7th century told of captives being carried off by barbarians to be slaves. The priests, monks, bishops, and pious laymen redeemed many of them at a great cost. By the Middle Ages, slavery no longer existed in Christian countries. Slavery had been replaced by serfdom, an intermittent condition in which men enjoyed all of his personal rights except the right to leave the land he cultivated and the right to freely dispose of his property. As a consequence of the wars against the Muslims and the commerce maintained with the East, the European countries bordering the Mediterranean, particularly Spain and Italy, once more had slaves. The Trinitarians, founded in 1198 by St. John of Martha and St. Vincent Valois, redeemed 900,000 slaves. The Order of Our Lady of Ransom, founded in the 13th century by St. Peter Nolasco, redeemed 490,736 slaves between the years of 1218 and 1632. None of the expeditions sent against the Barbary states by the power of Europe or America equaled the moral effect produced by the ministry of consolation, peace, and abnegation, going even to the sacrifice of liberty and life, which was exercised by the humble sons of St. John of Martha, St. Peter Nolasco, and St. Vincent of Paul. A second revival of slavery took place after the discovery of the New World by the Spaniards in 1492. The full potential for this second revival was reduced with the petitions of Las Casas on the behalf of the Aborigines of America and the censure of Pope against the enslavement of those Aboriginals and the traffic of Negro slaves. England, France, Portugal, and Spain all participated in the nefarious traffic of slaves at the time. In 1871, the writer Ernest Havet, in his book Le Christianisme es origine, on page 21, stated that the papacy had not yet been able to make up its mind to condemn slavery. He forgot that in 1462, Pius II declared slavery to be a great crime, or magnum scandalus. In 1537, Paul III forbade the enslavement of the Indians. Additionally, Pius VII demanded of the Congress of Vienna in 1815 to suppress the slave trade. Gregory the 16th condemned slavery altogether in 1839. Everyone should know of the beautiful letter Leo the 13th wrote in 1888, addressed to the Brazilian bishops, exhorting them to banish from their countries the remnants of slavery. The bishops responded with their most energetic efforts, and many generous slave owners freed their slaves, as in the first ages of the church. Prior to the American Civil War, British evangelical William Wilberforce was the primary driver behind ending of the international slave trade. As a result of his efforts, the Slavery Abolitions Act was passed by the House of Commons in July of 1833. Within a month, it became law. On the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, abolition societies worked tirelessly to free slaves. Two-thirds of the members of the American Abolition Society in 1835 were Christian ministers. The slave trade still continues for the use of Muslim countries. Some writers of the socialist school say the disappearance of slavery is due to the evolution of interests in economics. Their critique shows their materialistic conception of history. Yet the fact remains that the disappearance of slavery is Christianity acting through its teachings and the influence of its charity. Fruit 3: More human rights and relief. The idea that all people had human rights is extended from the belief that God created all mankind in his image. This was of most importance to those with the least power in society. Women, for example, were considered property. The hierarchy of the ancient world meant that a woman was more valuable than a slave, but less valuable than a man. Women were often used as bartering chips, used in a trade, and the only right a woman had was through her husband. The woman had no right to her estate should her husband die. The best she could hope for was to have a son that would take over and be kind to her. Christianity was the first religion not to force women into marriages. Christianity was the first religion to accept women and slaves as full members, being able to participate fully and equally in worship and community. Christianity was the first religion to let women retain their control of their husband's estates if he should die. The Christian requirement for heterosexual monogamous love provided the basis for a lasting and exclusive relationship between husband and wife, oriented towards the rearing of children. Christians did not cohabitate. If a Christian man wanted to live with a woman, he had to marry her, which gave the woman greater security. The pagan double standard of allowing married men to have extramarital sex and mistresses was forbidden. In all these ways, Christian women had greater security and equality than other women. These things showed Christianity favored the security for women. Christian religion emphasizes showing mercy to the neediest and lowliest in society. For example, the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10:30 through 37 is a classic illustration of this. In addition to elevating the marginalized in society, the Christian community has gone to great lengths to serve the helpless. In Mark Tinsdale's book entitled Methodist Evangelism, American Salvation, it claims on page 203 that, quote, the new view of evangelism called for the denomination to undertake two new forms of activities: humanitarian aid and social witness. Humanitarian aid went beyond the individual help that many home missionaries were already providing to people within their care. It involved creating new structures that would augment the political, economic, and social systems so that those systems might be more humane. It included the establishment of Methodist hospitals in all major cities in the United States. These hospitals were required to provide the best treatment possible, free of charge to all who needed it, and were often staffed with deaconesses who trained as nurses. Homes for the ages and orphanages were also part of this work, unquote. The book Models for Christian Higher Education states, quote, Wesleyan institutions, whether hospital, orphanages, soup kitchens, or schools, historically were begun with the spirit to serve all people to transform society, unquote. Many Christian dominations were responsible for the establishment of hospitals, universities, orphanages, kitchens, and schools to follow Jesus' command to serve all people. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. The Catholic Church established a hospital system in medieval Europe that was different from the Greeks and Romans. These hospitals helped particular social groups marginalized by poverty, sickness, and age. According to Gunter Rees in the book Mending Bodies and Saving Souls, A History of Hospitals, in 2009, Catholic hospitals in the United States received approximately 1 out of 6 patients. Nuns were trained to see Jesus in the face of every patient, and the nuns helped hospitals focus on servicing the needy over profit. It was a pleasure to be with you today. Please join me for the last part of this chapter. Until next time, I hope all is well.